When I returned home from my 18-month deployment in Afghanistan, I thought my kids would still love me. Watching those soldiers coming home videos on YouTube was literally the only thing that got me through the darkest moments overseas. Seeing all of my friends getting shot, losing brothers in arms, surviving ambushes that still wake me up screaming at night. So when I walked through that front door and my children didn't even hug me, my heart completely shattered into pieces. They didn't even look up from their tablets when they mumbled hello, like some stupid mobile game was more important than their dad coming home from war. That's when I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. It was my in-laws, Carol and Robert. They hugged me tightly, saying they had been waiting for this moment for so long. This warmed my heart temporarily and I hugged them back, grateful for some kind of welcome. Then my wife Diana appeared out of nowhere and gave me this weird light hug. That's when I tensed up because as I glanced around our living room, I noticed it had been completely filled with empty moving boxes and packed suitcases. I guess they noticed me staring at all the boxes because that's when they broke the devastating news to me. Diana was struggling to take care of everything while you abandoned your family, Carol said, using the word abandoned like it was some kind of joke. But it felt real. It felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I froze completely in my tracks because Diana and I had countless conversations before I left for the war. She was actually the one who convinced me that deploying was a good idea for our family's future. She said the military benefits and combat pay would set us up financially. Other ex-soldiers had already warned me that things would seem off during the first week of returning home, so I shoved my pain away and told myself it was only a matter of time before things went back to normal. That this was just adjustment period stress. That night for dinner, I decided to cook my famous roast chicken, the one with homemade rosemary garlic butter and creamy mashed potatoes. Before I left for Afghanistan, my kids would practically beg me to cook this meal every single day. It was our special family tradition. But now, nothing, not even a simple thanks, Dad. We were eating in complete silence when my youngest son, 5-year-old Tyler, accidentally dropped his plate on the floor. The loud crash triggered something in my brain. Suddenly, my nervous system raced into full combat mode. I quickly stood up and ducked under the kitchen table, whispering a countdown from 5 to 1 like I had done during mortar attacks in the war. But when I got to 1, nothing happened. That's when I realized I was back home, safe in my own kitchen. I took a deep breath and sat back down at the table. Instead of my wife comforting me or asking if I was okay, she just stared at me with this look of absolute horror on her face. Her mother Carol was typing something furiously on her phone. I had no idea they had been filming me the entire time. My daughters Sophia and Tyler were immediately whisked away from the dinner table before I could even apologize to them or explain what had happened. The next few months became absolutely brutal. My wife became as distant as a stranger, and my kids refused to do anything with me. They wouldn't play games, wouldn't watch movies, wouldn't even let me help with their homework. The only things keeping me company were my PTSD symptoms and this growing sense that something was terribly wrong. One morning I woke up to a knock at our front door. It was a woman in a business suit holding an official-looking folder. Mr. Thompson, I'm Angela from Child Protective Services. We've received some very concerning reports about erratic behavior around your children. She then showed me something that still makes my skin crawl to this day. Right there on her phone was a video compilation of my PTSD flashbacks, completely taken out of context. I had been framed to look unpredictable and violent. The editing made me appear like some kind of dangerous maniac instead of a veteran struggling with combat trauma. I grabbed onto the doorframe to stop myself from collapsing as the reality hit me. That's when Diana appeared behind me. I thought she was going to defend me, tell this woman that I was a good father who just needed support. But no. I think it's best if you stay somewhere else for a while, she said coldly. For the children's safety. Her parents flanked her like bodyguards, and I noticed Carol was still filming everything on her phone. I knew if I didn't leave right then and there, it would provide even more evidence of me being supposedly a bad father. So I left my own home with nothing but a trash bag of my dirty clothes and a phone charger. I had only kept 20% of what I earned during my military deployment, with the rest going directly to my family's bank account. But I checked our finances, there were only $35 sitting in my account. I immediately texted Diana asking where all our money had gone. She responded instantly, investment opportunities. Your parents needed it more than we did. I stared at my phone with tears blurring my vision. My own wife had given our entire deployment savings to her parents, while I was overseas getting shot at by insurgents. My days became filled with depression naps in my truck, showering at the local gym, and eating free food from the church down the street. I was basically homeless in my own hometown. I was sitting in a Taco Bell one afternoon when I saw Jake walking in. We had served together in Afghanistan, survived the same ambush that killed 3 of our squad members. Now he was a lawyer, back in civilian life. Brother, what the hell happened to you? He asked, shocked at my appearance. When I told him everything that had happened, his jaw clenched with anger. Those videos they showed CPs, were they recording you without your consent? When I nodded, he actually smirked. You know that's completely illegal in this state, right? And for the first time since I had been deployed, I smiled back. Jake decided to work for my case completely, for free, fueled by pure rage at how a fellow veteran was being treated. After just one day of investigation, he found something that changed absolutely everything. I had forgotten about a shared folder on my old iPad, one that was still connected to Diana's iCloud account. What I saw when Jake showed me the contents made my stomach turn completely inside out. Video after video of Diana coaching our kids, literally training them to ignore me when I was around the house. "Remember, if anyone asks, you don't feel safe with Daddy," she said casually in one video, as if she was talking about the weather. And in the background of all these coaching videos was a man I recognized instantly. Her CrossFit gym friend Steve, the one I had always seen checking her out. Now he was rubbing her shoulders while she taught our children to lie about me. That's when I knew I needed to fight for full custody of my kids. I scrolled through that folder with shaking hands. There were over 200 videos, each one dated and organized by month. The earliest video started 6 months ago, right around when Diana had started acting strange during our video calls. I clicked on one from 3 months back. Sophia sat on Diana's lap, while Steve leaned against our kitchen counter with his arms crossed. "What do you say when the judge asks about Daddy?" Diana asked sweetly. "That he scares me," Sophia recited, her voice flat and rehearsed like she was reading from a script. "Good girl. And what else?" "That he yells really loud and throws things." Steve stepped forward, ruffling Sophia's hair. "Maybe add that you cry when you see him. Judges eat that stuff up." My hands trembled so badly, I nearly dropped the iPad. Jake grabbed it from me, his face darkening as he watched more videos. We sat in that Taco Bell booth for 3 hours, going through video after video. Each one showed Diana drilling the kids on what to say, how to act, what lies to tell. Steve appeared in most of them, always offering suggestions, always touching Diana's shoulder or playing with her hair. "We need to file for emergency custody immediately," Jake said, already pulling out his laptop. "This is textbook parental alienation. No judge will ignore evidence this clear, blind." But when we filed the motion the next morning, things didn't go exactly as planned. Diana's parents had hired Robert Patterson, one of the most expensive family lawyers in our state. He showed up to the courthouse in a suit that probably cost more than my truck. "Your Honor," Patterson said smoothly, "given Mr. Thompson's documented PTSD and the concerning videos my client has provided, we request a full psychological evaluation before any custody modifications are considered." The judge nodded thoughtfully. "That seems reasonable. We'll schedule the hearing for 8 weeks from now, pending Dr. Martinez's evaluation." 8 weeks. My kids would spend another 2 months being poisoned against me while I fought through legal bureaucracy. Jake objected, arguing that the coaching video showed immediate psychological harm to the children, but Patterson dismissed them as taken out of context without even viewing the evidence. Dr. Martinez's office smelled like expensive leather and old books. He had certificates covering every wall and a golf trophy, prominently displayed on his desk. As he asked me questions about my deployment, my childhood and my marriage, I tried to stay calm and measured. Then I noticed a photo on his bookshelf. Dr. Martinez in tennis whites, standing next to Carol at what looked like some kind of country club event. "You know my mother-in-law?" I asked carefully. He glanced at the photo and smiled. "Oh yes, Carol and I played doubles every Sunday. Wonderful woman." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face completely neutral. Any complaint would make me look paranoid and unstable. So, I answered his questions, knowing this evaluation was probably already decided before I even walked into his office. Chapter 9. Supervised Visits and Manipulation. The supervised visitation started 2 weeks later. I was allowed to see Sophia and Tyler for exactly 2 hours every Saturday at this sterile visitation center that felt more like a prison than a place for families. Diana would drop them off, always making a show of hugging them extra tight and whispering loud enough for me to hear. "Remember, if Daddy tries to take you away forever, just scream for help." Tyler would start crying before Diana even left the building. "I don't want Daddy to take me away. I want to stay with Mommy." The supervisor would write detailed notes while I tried to calm my sobbing 5-year-old, tried to explain that I wasn't taking anyone anywhere. But the damage was already done. Every single visit started with tears and ended with the kids asking when they could go home. I started noticing changes in Sophia during these visits. Designer clothes I had never seen before, a gold bracelet that looked real, a new iPhone when she had only had a basic flip phone before deployment. When I asked where all these expensive things came from, she just shrugged. "Steve buys me stuff." "That's nice of him," I said through gritted teeth. "Does Steve live with you now?" "Sometimes. He and Mommy share a room." Jake tried to get the kids' school records and medical files, anything that might show the psychological impact of what was happening to them. But every single request hit a brick wall. The school needed both parents' consent. The doctor's office claimed they had misplaced the files, and even their teacher, Mrs. Bell, who had always been friendly before, now avoided eye contact when I waited outside the school. Then Jake's private investigator found something crucial. Steve Morrison had a criminal record, 2 restraining orders from previous girlfriends, both who had children, a fraud conviction from 5 years ago involving identity theft and credit card scams. We prepared a motion to submit this information to show the court exactly who was really living with my children. Patterson shot it down immediately. "Your Honor, this is irrelevant character assassination. Mr. Morrison is not a party to this custody matter." "Sustained," the judge said. "Let's focus on the parents' counselor." Meanwhile, Diana started posting constantly on social media. Photos of her looking exhausted with captions about being a struggling single mom and doing everything alone. Friends commented with hearts and support messages, not knowing that I was sending 60% of my security job wages in child support. Robert showed up at my workplace the following week. I was checking badges at the front desk when he walked in wearing his designer suit. Is your supervisor available? He asked the receptionist, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. I have serious concerns about one of your security guards. A potentially dangerous veteran situation. My supervisor called me into his office an hour later. Marcus, I'm moving you to night shift. Less interaction with the public. Sir, he's lying. I've never done anything wrong. I'm not saying you did anything wrong, but we can't have complaints like this. Night shift starts Monday. The night shift meant I couldn't even watch my kids at school anymore. Couldn't wave at them from across the street during pickup time. My world shrank to darkness and empty office buildings. During one Saturday visit, Tyler climbed onto my lap, while Sophia colored at the table. He was playing with toy cars when he suddenly whispered something that made my blood run cold. Daddy, Steve hits mommy when he's angry. My whole body went rigid. The supervisor looked up from her clipboard. What did you say, buddy? Tyler's eyes went wide with fear. Nothing. I'm not supposed to tell. Mommy said never tell anyone. It's okay, I said softly, even though rage was boiling in my chest. You can tell Daddy anything. But he shook his head frantically and went back to his cars. The supervisor made another note on her clipboard. Jake discovered more financial bombshells. Credit cards had been opened in my name that I had never applied for. $30,000 in debt had been racked up while I was overseas. Purchases at stores I had never been to. Restaurants I had never eaten at. The credit card company said I would have to file police reports to prove it was fraud, but that would mean officially accusing Diana. Patterson would spin that as more erratic behavior from an unstable veteran. My security job wages were being garnished at 60%, leaving me with barely enough to survive. When I tried to access our joint savings account to pay Jake's investigator, I found the account had been frozen. Diana claimed I was hiding assets and moving money to avoid paying support. The irony was absolutely brutal. I was living in my truck while she claimed I was hiding wealth from the family. Jake's investigator had been watching Diana's gym, and one morning, he hit absolute gold. Security footage from 3 months ago, 2 months before I had even come home from deployment. Diana, Steve, Carol, and Robert sitting in the gym's juice bar with papers spread across their table. The investigator couldn't get audio, but the body language was crystal clear. Carol pointing at documents, Steve nodding along, Diana looking uncertain, until Robert put his hand on her shoulder in a reassuring gesture. They planned this whole thing, Jake said, studying the footage frame by frame. Before you even got back from Afghanistan, they had this entire conspiracy mapped out. The pre-trial hearing was an absolute disaster for our side. Carol produced photos of me at the shooting range, claiming it proved violent tendencies toward weapons. It's required training for my security job, I protested. Nevertheless, Patterson said smoothly, it shows a comfort with weapons that deeply concerns my client and her family. The judge ordered anger management classes before any custody considerations could move forward. Another 16 weeks of delay. Another 4 months of my kids being systematically poisoned against me. Sophia's teacher finally reached out, but not officially. She called Jake's office from her personal phone. I can't testify without a court order, she said, her voice shaking. But Sophia is failing 3 classes. She was a straight-A student before all this started. And the things she writes in her journal, she draws pictures of her family. But her dad is always scribbled out in black marker. Dr. Patel, the children's court-appointed therapist, took an even bigger risk. She called Jake privately, her voice shaking with emotion. I could lose my license for this phone call, but those kids are being severely psychologically damaged. The coaching is obvious to anyone with training. Tyler has started wetting the bed again, and Sophia shows clear signs of severe anxiety. But my reports keep getting edited before they reach the court. We tried to get her testimony admitted as evidence, but we needed a court order for that too. Another motion. Another delay. Another month of my children's suffering. The deposition was our first real breakthrough in months. Diana sat across from Jake with Patterson beside her, a court reporter typing every single word. Jake walked her through the timeline carefully and methodically. Then he asked the question that changed everything. You said you were shocked by the video CPS showed you, correct? Yes, completely shocked. But you knew about those videos before CPS arrived at your house, didn't you? No. She stopped, mid-sentence, realizing her massive mistake. I mean, I knew Robert was concerned about Marcus, but... Objection, Patterson said quickly. Mischaracterizes the testimony. But the damage was done. The court reporter had typed every word of her slip-up. Steve started picking up the kids from school regularly. The restraining order kept me 500 feet away, but I could see him from across the street. He would ruffle Tyler's hair, carry Sophia's backpack, play the perfect father figure role. Other parents smiled and waved, not knowing this man had 2 restraining orders for domestic violence. My bank accounts were frozen next. Diana claimed I was hiding deployment money, moving assets to offshore accounts. Jake proved that every single cent had gone to Robert's failed restaurant venture, but the freeze stayed in place while the court investigated. How much more can they take from us? I asked Jake one night, sitting in his office surrounded by legal papers. We're close, he said with determination. The emergency hearing is next week. The judge has to watch all the coaching videos, unedited, in their entirety. The emergency hearing was supposed to be just another routine delay tactic, but Jake had prepared something special. He had synced all the coaching videos with a timeline, showing how they escalated, how Steve's involvement grew, and how the children's behavior changed over time. Your Honor, Jake said, I'd like to play Exhibit 47. The video filled the courtroom screen. Carol sat with Diana at our kitchen table, Steve in the background. Carol slid an envelope across the table. "This will guarantee you get full custody," Carol said clearly. "Your father and I will handle all the legal fees. Once you have sole custody, you and Steve can sell the house and start fresh somewhere new." Diana took the envelope and peeked inside. "Mom, this is exactly what you need to secure your future and the children's future. Without him." The judge leaned forward intently. Patterson objected, claiming the video was edited or possibly deep-faked. Jake's expert witness, a digital forensic specialist, testified for an hour about authentication methods, metadata analysis, and the impossibility of that level of fabrication. Then came the breaking point. Video after video played in that courtroom. Sophia crying, as Diana told her Daddy was dangerous. Tyler being coached to say he was scared of his own father. Steve suggesting specific phrases and accusations for maximum impact. 200 videos. 6 months of systematic alienation and psychological abuse. Diana started crying halfway through, real tears, not the practiced ones from her social media posts. "I want to address the court," she suddenly said. Patterson grabbed her arm. "Diana, I strongly advise against this." She shook him off forcefully. "I can't do this anymore." The courtroom went completely silent. "They made me do it," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "My parents," they said. "If I didn't go along with their plan, they would ruin me financially. They would take everything and make sure I never saw my kids again. They had Steve ready, had this whole conspiracy planned out. I just wanted Marcus to come home safely. I never wanted any of this to happen." Robert shot to his feet. "She's lying. She's mentally unstable." "Sit down, Mr. Wilson," the judge said sharply. Diana continued, words pouring out like a broken dam. The threats, the manipulation, the money. How her parents had controlled her entire life. How they saw me as beneath their family. How they had waited for my deployment to strike. Steve was their idea, someone they could control. Someone who would do whatever they wanted. "But he's violent," she continued sobbing. "He's hurt me and hurt the kids, and I let it happen because I was more scared of my parents than anything else." The judge had heard enough evidence. "Based on everything presented today, I'm granting immediate temporary custody to Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson will have supervised visits only, pending further psychological evaluation. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson are barred from any contact with the minor children pending criminal investigation." Carol screamed bloody murder. Robert threatened to sue everyone in the courthouse. Patterson tried to maintain some kind of order as security moved in to escort them out. Steve was already gone. He had slipped out during Diana's testimony, probably heading for state lines. Jake's investigator later confirmed he had fled to avoid the fraud warrant that was issued within hours. "I picked up my kids that afternoon. Really picked them up, with no supervisor, no time limit, no restrictions. Tyler hugged me so tight I could barely breathe." Sophia cried, but they were different tears. Relief, maybe, or just exhaustion from carrying lies for so many months. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered through her tears. "I didn't mean those things I said about you." "I know, baby. I know you didn't mean any of it." Diana entered intensive therapy the following week. Real therapy, not the court-ordered kind designed to make her look good. She had to unlearn a lifetime of her parents' psychological control and manipulation. The kids started therapy too, with Dr. Patel now free to actually help them instead of having her reports edited by corrupt administrators. Carol and Robert hired new lawyers, expensive ones, but their country club friends distanced themselves quickly once the criminal charges became public. Fraud, conspiracy, witness tampering, child endangerment. The charges piled up like an avalanche. Their perfect reputation crumbled completely overnight. They mortgaged their house to pay legal fees, sold their vacation home in Florida, and liquidated their retirement accounts. 6 months later, I sat in a different courtroom for the final custody hearing. Diana sat across from me, but the hostility was completely gone. She looked healthier, clearer, like a massive weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Your Honor," she said when asked to speak, "I support Marcus having primary custody of our children. I'm not ready to be the mother they deserve yet. I need to continue working on myself and healing from my parents' abuse. I know Marcus will take excellent care of them while I do that work." The judge granted my request. Primary custody to me. Supervised visits for Diana with a clear path to unsupervised visits as her therapy progressed. Carol and Robert's criminal trial was set for the following month. They had already lost everything that mattered to them. Their money, their reputation, their control over the family. I drove home with my kids that day. Really home, to our house, our life together. Tyler chattered excitedly about school from the backseat. Sophia showed me her dramatically improved report card, grades climbing back up to where they belonged. Normal kid stuff. Beautiful. Boring. Perfectly normal kid stuff. That night I cooked my famous roast chicken again. The one with rosemary garlic butter and creamy, mashed potatoes. This time Tyler helped mash the potatoes, while Sophia set the table without being asked. We ate together, talking and laughing about everything and nothing. No tablets, no coaching, no lies between us anymore. "Dad," Sophia asked as I tucked her into bed, "are you going to stay home forever now?" "Forever and always, baby girl. Forever and always." And for the first time since I had come home from Afghanistan, I actually believed those words completely. The criminal trial ended with guilty verdicts across the board. Carol got 3 years in federal prison. Robert got 4. Their assets were liquidated for restitution and legal fees. The empire they had built on manipulation and control crumbled entirely. Steve took a plea deal. 18 months in federal prison and full restitution in exchange for testimony about Carol and Robert's broader criminal schemes. Turns out my family wasn't their first target, just their most elaborate and cruel. Diana continues intensive therapy and has made remarkable progress. She's learning to be her own person for the first time in her life, not just an extension of her parents' ambitions. The kids still go to therapy, but they're healing beautifully. Tyler sleeps through the night now without nightmares. Sophia joined the art club at school and shows me her drawings with pride instead of fear. Sometimes they ask about their grandparents, and I tell them the truth in age-appropriate ways. That sometimes adults make very bad choices that hurt people they're supposed to love. What? Last week, Tyler asked me if I was proud of him for telling the truth about Steve hitting his mom. I told him I was the proudest dad in the entire world. As for me, I still deal with PTSD symptoms, but I have proper support now. Therapy, medication when needed, and most importantly, my children safe in their own beds every night. My military brothers always said the real battle starts when you come home. They were right, but not in the way any of us expected. The people who were supposed to love and protect my family turned out to be the real enemy. But we survived their war too, and we're stronger for it. Tonight my kids are safe, fed, and loved. They know their dad will never abandon them again, and they know that speaking the truth, even when it's scary, is always the right choice. That's worth fighting for. That's worth everything.